Alright guys, so we're going to be talking about the ability to play Apex Legends in China. Obviously, in December, if you guys don't remember, China had a bunch of issues with potentially banning certain games in the market. And I think you guys know, if you know anything about China already, they already have such weird rules and regulations regarding, video games and social media outlets. There's so much of a gray area in China as to what is allowed, what is not allowed, what's banned, what's censored. So, you already know China is going to have some issues with this stuff, but now Apex Legends, it's becoming so popular so quickly that sometimes, the popularity and the revenue outweighs the potential sort of censorship that they want to do, or banning the game because of, vulgar language or violence that Apex Legends may have in the game. That may outweigh that. So let's go through why this is coming up here and what exactly they're going to do. So according to a report from the South China Morning Post, a source on the Chinese blogging website claims that Tencent is in talks with EA to take the wildly popular video game to the Chinese market. So this is obviously why this is happening. They see how popular Apex Legends is and they want to rush it out to the market. But if you guys don't know, like I mentioned, the Chinese government has reportedly banned a number of high-profile games across the country. This is from the beginning of December. I'm pretty sure it was a huge deal where this whole list of games here that I'm going to show you guys, was potentially going to be banned and reviewed by the government because of these certain things here. So various games then went under review by the committee to decide whether they are required to make changes to meet those guidelines or they will be outright banned. So they didn't just go and ban all of the games. They gave them these guidelines and pretty much said that you guys have to meet our guidelines, you're going to be under review, or you're done and you have to be off the market. And obviously, Fortnite was one of those games that they apparently said was prohibited due to blood and gore and vulgar content, which obviously none of that is within Fortnite, and that's why a ton of people are talking about it. And here's the list of games up on screen. Some of those including PUBG, Fortnite, obviously League of Legends, H1Z1, Overwatch, and all of these different games which clearly probably don't actually meet these guidelines anyway, according to China. But apparently there's this thing where they're not exactly sort of paying attention to the rules, and it's sort of this thing like the Chinese government pretty much said, oh, you guys have to meet our guidelines, but they never truly enforced it. So there is some weird gray area, like I said, as to where these games are still technically available. Like, you could play Fortnite in China, but it's just this weird gray area whether or not it'll actually officially be banned, or if the government is just not really paying attention to it because maybe it's providing a lot of revenue for their market. So Tencent is this publisher that actually brought Fortnite to China earlier in 2018 with a price tag of 15 million. They have yet to reply on anything with the ban. I think right now they're just trying to not really talk about it because here's again up on screen, it doesn't seem like the Chinese government has enforced any of these restrictions as of yet, and there's no word from the government regarding any of these bans or actions taken. So overall, it's like they pretty much said, oh, we're going to ban all these games if you guys don't meet our guidelines, if you don't get rid of the blood and gore from Fortnite, but they never actually, enforce those rules. And that was back in December. So now that same company that brought Fortnite wants to bring, Apex Legends to China. So up on screen, words are Tencent is in talks with EA about publishing Apex in China. And that would obviously be huge for the company, for that publisher, for the game's popularity, and it's pretty much a win for everyone. But the thing is here, there still is no official word and official say as to if this game, like obviously I think Fortnite is probably the most PG game you could have. Apex Legends, I'm not saying there's too much violence, but it's definitely a bit more violent than Fortnite. So if they said Fortnite has blood and gore and vulgar language, then Apex Legends, there's no way that's passing through, and there's no way they're going to have a green light on that game. So that's obviously another situation there they have to, deal with. Another thing here is that Chinese regulators had placed a 9-month-long freeze on accepting licenses for games. So this was actually separate from the possible ban of those games. There was already a freeze on new licenses for games being, you know, accepted for the Chinese market. So just like I'm saying again, it's so difficult to apparently get into this market, and now that there's so many, you know, potential shortcomings of any new games coming to the market, of the games that are already there, like Fortnite, PUBG, Overwatch, those could be taken out of the market because of them not meeting the guidelines. That there's already so many issues that bringing Apex Legends there probably is going to be fairly difficult. But if the government doesn't really care anymore and they're not really paying attention, even though they said that you guys have to meet our guidelines, they never really, you know, enforce those rules. So I guess if they're not going to enforce the rules, Apex Legends will be allowed to, you know, be sold and played in the Chinese market, in Chinese regions. But as of now, it really shouldn't be allowed. I think it should be allowed, but according to China, it shouldn't be. So we'll have to see what happens here. I think obviously it's huge for Apex. It'll boost the actual player count so much. It'll keep the game popular, and obviously that's what I want because I like the game. I enjoy the game. It's a fun game, and I wouldn't want it to be held back because of, you know, stupid Chinese regulations. So hopefully this goes through, and yeah, see you guys later.